against the Chargers. Jalen Hurts might have had his worst game of his career, unfortunately. He committed 5 turnovers, including throwing an interception in overtime that sealed the 22-19 win for Los Angeles. Philly has now dropped 3 straight games. Post-game, Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown spoke on their disappointing performance.
And at the end of the day, it's all about how you respond to it. So it definitely stings. Definitely stings. But, how do you respond? And that's the only way I know how to look at it. And again, you're going to see what type of resolve does this team have? What type of resolve do we have within? What's in us to respond the way we want to? So we just got to dig.
You can't just point a finger, I think all of us has a hand in that pie. We trying to get better. Obviously, he's a quarterback. He's gonna get a lot of stuff for it, but putting this thing together.
So with the poor performance, Jalen Hurts becomes the first Eagles player with 5 turnovers in a game since Donovan McNabb in 1999. The Eagles overall have committed 9 turnovers in their last 3 games after turning it over only 4 times through the first 10 weeks. This is not something we're accustomed to seeing, obviously, from Jalen Hurts, but now the level of concern raises, I think, for all of us. So after the meltdown last night, Jeff Saturday, what level of concern are you at with this Eagles offense?
Yeah, I'm very concerned because I don't think they know who they are. And I think, I came on here and I think it was Drew Brees and I and Canty, we were all in this conversation. And I said, listen, everybody wanted this. It's such a boring offense to watch. They won that way. It was a very low-risk, high-reward profile that they were playing under. And I understand their run game was struggling. Their offensive line isn't the same. They're not as dominant. I get all of those things. But there is a style of play that translates to wins for the Philadelphia Eagles. Their defense can carry. You saw it last night. They could have won that game even after 5 turnovers because of how good their defense is. The problem is they listened to all the outside noise. So they began to try to change who they are. Now they want to put Jalen Hurts. They had 13 snaps, I think, under center. Everything else was from the gun. He's trying to play drop-back pass all night, throws it 40 times. We saw what ends up happening. Again, now this is not all on Jalen Hurts. He did not play well. Obviously, I'm not trying to absolve him. But you can't have your best receiver that has been and wanted all the attention have a alligator arms for a tip pick, a drop pass on the first play of the game, and a touchdown in the end zone. Everybody else has got to pull their weight as well. So my concern is, does Sirianni get them back and figure out a formula? Here is the formula and the path for the Eagles to win. Good defense, run game, limit turnovers to no turnovers. Let's make it ugly, and let's have a shot at the end. They beat the Packers. They beat some really good teams. They are very capable, but not if they're going to be a turnover-prone football team.
Jeff, I understand what you're saying about their formula for success in the past. But you can't continue to do the same things and allow the rest of the NFL to catch on to what you're doing and find answers in terms of how to neutralize it, right?
Yeah, sure.
The other guys, the other coaches and players, they get paid too. And that's the thing that's so surprising about the Philadelphia Eagles offense. It has an air of predictability to it.
For sure.
Not that it's boring, it's just predictable. And at some point, that predictability leads to ineffectiveness. You got guys that have professional pride that you're lining up against every single week. And what I'm seeing when I turn on the TV is that Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Saquon Barkley look like a shell of their former selves. And it's not because they're washed up. It's because their head coach is not giving them the answers to the test and giving them counters to how defenses and how teams are trying to neutralize them. Listen, your top 2 receivers, they can run other routes other than a slant, a go, and a hitch. I promise you. Saquon Barkley, he can run the football on a run play other than inside zone or belly. I promise you. But that's all you're getting from this Eagles offense. You had 1 hard ball run in the 20 rush attempts that Saquon Barkley had last night. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You didn't have any linebacker trap, no powers, you had 1 counter, no leads. It's ridiculous. There's no variety to anything that the Philadelphia Eagles are doing on that side of the ball, and it's creating the worst version of the best players on that team.
When we talked about Coach Nick Sirianni, he's received a lot of criticism over the years, including how he responds to criticism from time to time. And all he's going out and done is guide the team to 2 Super Bowls and won a Super Bowl title.
Yeah.
And is one of the winningest coaches in the NFL over the last several years. So the man is proven to be big time. But what we have to do is we have to have an honest discussion because, CC, especially with you and Jeff as well, I know numbers matter, okay? Because numbers tell us a story, not the whole story, but it tells us a story. So let me throw out a few numbers that I had researched, okay? Number one, 2 or fewer touchdowns in 7 of the 13 games this season for the Philadelphia Eagles. They entered this week with the league worst 3-and-out punt rate, the worst in the National Football League. Okay, so we got that going on, right? You're looking at Sirianni. This is the worst offense he's had since he's arrived in yards per game, points per game, efficiency per drive. I mean, we see all of that, right? Then let's get to A.J. Brown. Here's the thing that should be alarming. Do y'all know that since week 12, there is no receiver in the National Football League that's been more productive over the last 3 weeks than A.J. Brown? Nobody. Think about this. 342 receiving yards, leads the NFL. This is since week 12. 24 receptions, tied for first in the NFL. 18 first down, leads the NFL. 35 targets, second in the NFL. 3 touchdown passes, tied for third. And they've lost every game.
Yep.
What A.J. Brown, what we were saying that they needed to do and change things up and get him more actively involved, that has happened. And they proceeded to be on a 3-game losing streak. So when you talk about Sirianni not providing the players the answer to the test, you're absolutely on point, CC, because the bottom line is this. We saw Saquon Barkley rush for a 52-yard touchdown and 122 yards last night. We saw A.J. Brown have 100 yards receiving. You had a 100-yard rusher and a 100-yard receiver and a defense that held Justin Herbert to 46% completions, sacked him 7 times, and after their opening drive, neutralized him the rest of the game, and still lost. This comes down to something being very, very wrong with the Philadelphia Eagles, primarily you not protecting the football and turning the football over for sure, but also the fact that, again, they don't know who they are. Because when you need to call, when you have to get a victory, it comes back to your identity. It comes back to you knowing who you are and reminding people, this is who the hell we are. The Eagles don't have that element about them right now.
Well,
there's nobody that would look at them and pick up Green Bay, Seattle, or L.A. to lose to these Eagles. Nobody would pick that.
So Stephen A. makes a good point. Okay, so there's all these issues, right? At first, we're like, where happened to the run game? Then you got A.J. Brown saying, I want the football more. And then now all of a sudden, Jalen Hurts is turning the football over, and the offense doesn't have a lot of variety. Okay. Aren't all these things kind of fixable, though? I mean, does this look like we know?
Fixable in week 15?
I don't know.
What were you doing the first 14
every
weeks,
week,
Shay?
it feels like we have a different problem, though. Like, now A.J. Brown's getting the ball. Now Saquon Barkley's running the ball. Now we got an issue with our quarterback. Like, if everyone could just get on the same page.
Yeah, I think
I'm asking. I don't know.
Part of the problem, and this is what I live with, part of the problem is they've listened to the outside. When it was boring and people were upset.
How do you know that, Jeff?
They were winning. Because look, watch how they morphed. So the year they won the Super Bowl, look at their first 4, I think it was their first 4 or 5 games. They turned the ball over. They were like, nah, we're not going to do it this way. We're going to run that rock. We're going to do it this way. They protect the ball. They end up going and win the Super Bowl. This year, they start out hot. They're protecting the ball. They're making, what do you have, 2 or 3 turnovers in the first 11 games or something like that?
Yeah.
And now they've had 9 in the last 3 games. And you said it. Everybody's numbers are up, Stephen A. It ain't about numbers. That's the difference. They were a low-risk, high-reward team. Now, they did not have the same explosive games out of Saquon Barkley. I understand that. And everybody's like, well, they can't win. But they did win. They went and beat Green Bay. They go and they beat teams, and they may be ugly wins, but they won games because they allowed their defense and they played within themselves. Turnovers can be a high predictability of wins and losses. I know it's not the number one, but it's a big deal, y'all. And you saw them, even with 5 turnovers, they had a chance to win this game late. They're a really good football team if they don't have self-inflicted wounds. When you try to go throw the ball around and you go to gun and you go throw the ball 30-plus times, the ability for the other team to make plays goes way up. That's just facts of life.
But, Jeff, they were doing that last year. They were doing All of the productivity in the run game was gun run.
For sure.
They were doing all of that last year.
Yeah. But I'm saying their run game wasn't, but they weren't trying to throw the ball 30-plus times a week and what they did. The run game isn't going to be the same because their offensive line. Lane Johnson's gone. They're 15 and 27.
But Jeff, you're making my point for me.
But you don't go to throwing.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that the answer is, because your run game isn't what it is, you throw the ball.
Right.
What I'm saying is your head coach has got to give you answers to mitigate the impact of having those guys out of the lineup. Yeah. And I'm not trying to dismiss the importance of having a healthy Lane Johnson or Landon Dickerson or Cam Jurgens not being banged up, because those guys are important, and the offensive line is foundational to any NFL team's success. But your head coach has got to find ways to help you offset that. Look at the team that was across from you last night.
Right.
They lost both their starting tackles this year, Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt. And yet they're sitting there 9 wins and they just bested you. Not because they did. Now, hold on, let me finish. Not because they did anything special, but because they didn't get in their own way and turn the ball over and make critical mistakes. But what happens when you press, what happens when you don't have an identity is exactly what we saw from the Philadelphia Eagles last night. And the last time I checked, when it comes to establishing an agenda and an identity for a team, that's the head coach's job. We can't just like Nick Sirianni when we like his offensive coordinators like Shane Steichen and Kellen Moore. Talk to me when you lose those people and what happens in the following season and how you perform.
I'm wondering, when you bring that up, CC, before we get on out of here, is it what you're talking about, or is it something in reverse where because you're the Super Bowl champion, you've gotten a little bit lackadaisical because your mentality is that we can turn it on when necessary? That wasn't evidence last night. It hasn't been evidence over the last 3 games. But the only